problematic, to say the least. We've talked about how Israel has proportional representation. It has one house of parliament, the Knesset, 120 members. In order to become prime minister, in order to form a government, you need a majority of the Knesset, i.e., 61 seats. No party in Israel's history has ever gotten 61 seats. So every time after there's an election, the head of almost always the largest party tries to form a coalition, and as part of that, yeah, it makes for some strange bedfellows, and that's the case in after every single election. But one thing that's been controversial always in Israeli politics is what's collectively known as the Arab parties. Now, not everybody in those Arab parties is Arab, and those parties have seemingly different ideologies. For a long time, when I was following much more closely, there were three main Arab parties. One was a communist party, not as in, oh, they're leftists, let's call them communists, but they call themselves communists. One was an Islamist party, and one was a nationalist party. At some point, they tried to unite, and they did. They ran together, which tells you something about, the idea that fascism, communism, and theocracy are somehow anything other than three sides of the same coin. I don't know how to. Yeah, they're fundamentally not really different, and therefore can run together. Um, Now, there have been interesting cases in the past of one famous case was somebody who uh, led a party, and then it was later revealed that he was an agent of I think it was Iran. It doesn't really matter, and this is not a surprise. If you look at what these parties stand for, they stand for the elimination of Israel. They stand for what the Palestine essentially they stand for the Palestinian national cause, which is exterminating the Jews, at least the Jews who live between the Jordan River and the Mediterranean Sea. But in recent days, some members and one member of parliament, one former member of parliament, have done their bit to remind us where exactly these people stand. Let's start with a clip of Haneen Zoabi, a former member of the Israeli parliament from Balad, talking about October 7th.
And this is what we choose to resist. And it is not Hamas who resisting, it is the Palestinian people. And yes, you cannot differentiate between Hamas and the Palestinian people. You cannot differentiate between them. Those who entered in 7th of October, they didn't enter the Israeli borders, they entered their own land. They went to their own land. This is their land.
You cannot differentiate between Hamas and the Palestinian people. Longtime viewers of this channel will not be surprised by that absolutely correct statement because we make it all the time. But when we make it, it's I don't know, racist or homophobic or whatever insert whatever leftists would say in this case to dismiss this fact. But this is a Palestinian, and we've been saying throughout this war, if you want to know what the Palestinian cause is, listen to Palestinians. Don't listen to the Owen Joneses of the world. Listen to the Palestinians. They will tell you in the clearest of terms. We did an episode a few weeks ago, the Palestinian people in their own words. We showed a video that the fantastic Gil Schuster did going through, I guess it was the West Bank, asking Palestinians about peace, asking Palestinians, are you okay with Jews living here? And of course, they all said no. And if you actually poll the Palestinians, it'll be very close to 100% who will say no. We want all the Jews dead. But again, this is a member of the Israeli parliament. This is somebody who is an Israeli citizen making such a statement. And what more do you need? Welcome to the Daily Objective. Daniel, what more do we need other than that statement?
So first of all, you got me really excited when you said three sides of the same coin because immediately started thinking, is there an object that has three sides? And actually, technically, if you take Mobius strip, which only has like one side that sort of wraps around it, but if you consider the sides of the actual strip, technically Mobius strip has three sides. So they are the three sides of the same Mobius strip. But now I had a very similar reaction to this clip as you did when she started speaking about how there is no difference between Palestinians and Hamas. I was like, oh my God, who is this? She's actually right. And she sort of reinforces my theory that when it comes to absolute extremes or sort of absolute polarity, meaning us fighting for civilization and the evil fighting for barbarism, we actually agree on everything. We just think there is a different solution. How basically we both agree that sort of the culture of Palestinians is integrated with Hamas. We just have a problem with that, and she views it as something positive. And but now going to what you said about them, yeah, basically them going into Israel is just it's just basically what did you say? It's just they're just returning to their land. I mean, this absolutely drives the conflict in. You know, this is a problem I've had with the Western view of this conflict from the start. We keep telling Palestinians that if you keep fighting, we'll reward you. If you keep going, if you just keep going and kill Israelis, will give you your terrorists from the past back, will recognize your land, will or recognize the so-called state of Israel or the Palestinian territories, will will refund UNRWA, will protect you, will condemn Israel at every single, will redefine genocide just so it applies to you. And she is absolutely helping it. She is making this sort of go on and on because I was before the episode, I was sort of thinking about how people sometimes refer to this conflict as the Arab-Israeli conflict, but in reality, it's not actually Arab-Israeli conflict. It's a conflict between barbarism and civilization, and you have Arabs in Israel being to large parts on the side of Israel, and it really shouldn't be thought of it in that way because there is nothing about you being an Arab that somehow makes you unable to see what is actually going on here or what is the difference. And you should be condemned in the same way. If you are, we did an episode, Israelis for Hamas. In the same way, specifically meaning, I think, more Jewish Israelis. In the same way, Jewish Israelis are pro Hamas when they when they advocate for giving Palestinians a state, when they advocate for a ceasefire deal, in effect, they are helping Hamas. And in the same way, Arab Israelis are doing the same thing by either supporting the parties that do stand for these things or supporting it directly themselves. So, in a sense, they shouldn't be thought of as differently than, any other Israelis. They are Israelis like any other.
Yeah. Thank you, Bull Moose, for the super chat. Bull Moose says the UK banned the Union of Fascist Party in 1940 for basically the same reasons. Why can't Israel do the same, especially during wartime? Good question. And I think pretty much every election, the parliament votes to not allow the parties or one of the parties or a couple of the parties to run, and then the Supreme Court overturns that every single time. It's the same story every election. But that's a good question. And Corey asked some good questions in the chat, although I disagree with pretty much everything he says. I will read it. First of all, here's something I don't disagree with. Israeli Arabs are the least anti-Semitic Arabs in the world. Yeah, generally speaking, Israeli Arabs don't have the luxury of getting their information about Jews from their parents and teachers and the Quran. They actually have to interact with Jews because they live in the Jewish state. And those of them who actually want to pursue a good life for themselves quickly realize that racism doesn't work and doesn't lead towards that. And anti-Semitism. But generally speaking, the Arab population in Israel is worth about 24 seats in the Knesset, if you count it, proportionally. And these parties never, I think, very rarely get over 10 seats. I think when they united, they got like 13 or something like that. So yeah, not all Arabs vote for them. Corey also mentioned that some they're anti-Zionist Jews, and yeah, when we talk about them, we would also call them traitors in the sense of they're not traitors to like a cause or something because they've never been on the side of civilization. They're traitors in the legal sense. In the legal sense, if at the time of war you are advocating for the enemy, you are explaining why the enemy is doing the right thing, you are saying, I'm a representative in the Knesset of the Palestinian people. And the Palestinian people did what they did on October 7th, and they went into their land meaning, the land that is currently basically a state that shouldn't exist. That is what that means. Then, yeah, you are an active part of the war effort against the country. So Corey calls it free speech. It is not free speech. It is being a part of it is giving aid and comfort to the enemy, and it is absolutely treason. B, free speech, free speech is your right to express your views without being persecuted by the government. It is not your right to actually make things use government force to move things in a certain direction. So yeah, who can run for parliament isn't necessarily the same as is it okay for you to express this view or that view legally?
Yeah, I mean, my biggest problem when it comes to sort of banning the parties, and we had a similar thing in Slovakia with our sort of like neo-Nazi parties. Basically, there was one, it was banned. They made another one that was banned a bit later, and they made another one, and they were able to continue with that one. And eventually, they sort of faded into irrelevance, and another party that was again a bit more moderated, a bit more careful with, not denying Holocaust like every single week, just once a year or sort of just put it through. And my biggest problem with the idea of like banning parties and not banning parties is oftentimes, the fact that we are in this situation where you have sort of parties that are actively advocating for I mean, when it comes to the Communist Party, at least, like reshaping the nature of the country, like from the core, and or even considering possible like elimination of the country, we have already felt by that point. There's already, not sort of there is like a point of no return, but we are in like a culture is already in the really bad state when it comes to that, and I think in the time of war, which especially now you I think can easily make the case for. I think you can make the case for again sort of well, but in that scenario, I still dislike the idea of banning a parties. I think you ban the people or ban the people. When you have sort of people advocating or having these ideas like actively working for the enemy inside of your own country, the problem is not that they are congregated in one party. The fact is every single individual should absolutely be jailed if again it's the national security issue. So that's where I would sort of not necessarily draw the line, but sort of go to its actual conclusion. Like it's the people actively posing the national security threat that are the problem. It's not the fact that they formed a party to do it.
Thanks, Bonnie, for the super chat. So another thing that happened and was controversial. This was this yesterday? No, 2 days ago. Ayman Odeh, the leader of the Communist Party, which again is one of the so-called Arab parties, tweeted. This was in Hebrew, but pretty good translation is happy for the release of the hostages and prisoners. From here, we must free both peoples from the yoke of occupation. We were all born free. And now this is something much more common. What we just saw from Haneen Zoabi is rare even when it comes to the Arab and generally the anti-Zionist parties and movements in Israel. This is more common. which is they are very anti-Israel. They make an anti-Israel statement, and then they throw something in there that makes them seem like they're doing the both sides thing. Which again, if you look at Nazis and people taken to concentration camps, and you say both sides, well, you are taking a side, and of course any comparison between Israel and the Palestinians, and any claim that both sides are wrong as a statement of what's going on in the war is taking the side of the savages who started this war and refused to end it. But this statement is particularly infuriating because we saw the three hostages were released a couple of days ago, leaving, being moved from the Hamas car to the Red Cross car, being surrounded by hundreds of armed terrorists who are protecting them from the thousands of hungry, although not hungry in the sense that we heard, savages who would slaughter them on the spot if they could. And on the other hand, we have actual murderers being released, actual people who committed murder, committed terrorist atrocities. And so if you are happy for the release of the hostages, great. If you are happy for the release of the prisoners, you are happy that more hostages will be taken in the future by these people, some of whom have already made it clear that that's their intention, or that future Jews will be murdered by these people. That is what this statement means. And of course, the hostages was one small part of that tweet. After he talks about the hostages and prisoners, he talks about ending the occupation, i.e., it is Israel's fault that all this is happening. Why? Because of, I guess, an occupation that, if you can claim, was an issue in the case of Gaza, ended 20 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, just to cover the philosophical grounds, because he says we were all born free. Well, that's not true. Again, that's a view of freedom as some sort of default state of nature. Well, it's the actual opposite. It requires a government to extract force from sort of human interaction, and at the also very important part, it also requires for terrorist groups such as Hamas to not impose yourself on you. So especially when it comes to Palestinians, none of them were born free, even in the way we sort of think of it in the West, where you are born in a relatively free liberal democracy where some or part of your rights are enshrined somewhere and you can generally rely upon them. No such thing is going on in Gaza. And again, that sort of goes to what these people stand for. They don't really stand for anything. They don't really stand for, or at least they don't stand for anything good. They don't stand for any sort of prosperity. Again, the fact, I mean, show me one, like, sort of culture like the Palestinians that is thriving, that it stands for anything good, that stands for anything besides, well, we were here first for some reason and we should be able to like have a state here and they should go back home and they shouldn't be here. And it's like, well, what are they going to do after? Are they going to, with the Israeli skyscrapers, are they going to fill those skyscrapers with something else? Are they going to fill it with productivity? Are they going to fill it with that much production that Israelis have until now? No, it's going to be, we might, if it ever happens, and if that happens, then we're sort of screwed anyway. But when that happens, they'll probably do what they did in Gaza when they took over. They'll destroy anything that was left by Israelis and convert it into more weaponry, more ways to fight against the Israelis. Or, once Israelis are gone, more ways to fight against the West, Americans, or whoever is the closest to them. So yeah, that's what's truly despicable about. Oh yeah, and I should mention, I mean the fact that the fact that comparison is being made to Israeli hostages and Palestinian hostages. There were people who were caught on October 7, or there are people. I think some people that are released are the ones from like further away. Not to mention they are even. I'm not sure if this request is going anywhere, but I think there was some push to release Marwan Brugati, again another terrorist basically, and yeah, the fact that they are viewed as yeah, I mean, people are thinking about it very differently. When we have prisoners sort of in the West, it's like they were, under our legal law, they were citizens of our country, and under our legal framework, they did something to violate the rights of others, hopefully in the best case, unless it's some breaking of dumb regulation. They broke rights of other people and they go to prison. But when it comes to these people, they are foreign terrorists. They are terrorists from they are not Israelis. They are not Israeli citizens. They, in some ways, especially the people who committed October 7, they don't even have any right to exist anymore. They do not have the same protections or same sort of benefit of doubt that we give to citizens. They do not exist under the same law, under the same sort of system, and shouldn't be thought of in the same way.
Yeah, the treatment of by Israel of these parties is very similar to the approach of Israel to the Palestinians in general, and it kind of makes sense considering these people are de facto representatives of the Palestinian cause in Israeli politics. Um, it's the kind of, I don't know, hope or wish that maybe if you keep pretending that this is, as a democracy we need to have all voices and you need to have these kind of voices, maybe somehow they'll realize they're in a better place. I don't know what exactly the expectation is, but it is similar to the fact that Israel seems to expect at some point. Even now there are those who are saying let's start a peace process, and if you ask them with who, I don't know if anybody's asking them, but they will not have an answer because there is no answer. This is an imaginary thing that the Israeli left is trying to push on the Israeli people who are not buying it after October 7th, and on the Israeli leadership who may not buy it officially but are buying it in effect.
Yeah, I mean, what else is there to add? I mean, when it sort of comes, so, recently in recent days, especially with the Trump inauguration, I'm more trying to focus on so basically like what are the solutions to this? What are the solutions to anything rather than arguing who did what? And what we need when it comes to Israel, and this is not specifically for Arabs, but what we need is actual both parties and people who stand for the best within Israel and don't sort of surrender, not only surrender to terrorists when it comes to the deal, but actually even encourage it, even like in this case, saying this is Palestinian land. Again, like there should be some standard when it comes to rights. There should be some expectations when it comes to what it means to sort of be a good country or what it means to sort of be a good civilization. And the fact that there is none is what's really scary. So I hope for the best, or sort of, yeah, I hope for the best within both Arabs and Jewish Israelis and all other all other ethnic groups within Israel, because the fight isn't among Arab Arab Israelis and Jewish Israelis. It's between civilization and savagery. And I think increasingly more Arabs are on the side of Israel. I think I recently seen some poll that I think majority of Arabs believe that October 7 and the aftermath actually brought closer Jews and Arabs, in the sense that this is not a conflict between us. This is a conflict between us and them. And just a reminder for that, there was one Arab Israeli hostage in Gaza, and when I think when he was released, some people were wondering if there was like any preferential treatment he got and from Hamas because he was Arab, and it was like no, because he was not Arab, he was Israeli, and that was what was important to Hamas.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, well, in this battle between civilization and savagery, one thing that I think people should do, to stay on the right side is to sign up to our newsletter, our mailing list. It's not a regular newsletter, and you're not going to be spammed, but you will hear from us. And I think people who have watched even just this episode, let alone anything else on the channel, knows which side we're on. But Daniel, yesterday we talked about Biden's reign of terror ending, but I'm not sure I believe it until I actually see video proof of him going away. Do you have any for us?
Thank you very, very much.